Oh, it's looking good. Coffee's flowing. It's time to get going.
Hey, welcome back to Questions Over Coffee. My name's Kevin Smith. It's good to see you again. Want a cup of coffee? Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you don't miss anything that's coming up on Questions Over Coffee. If you have a comment or a question, leave in the section below. We'll get to it just as fast as we can. Today's question comes from Hemogoblin, King of Zombies. Hemogoblin writes, here's a question. Is getting a tattoo a sin? This is a very good question and one that we need to consider because, well, quite frankly, we want to do what's right in God's eyes. So, there is one passage in the Old Testament. It's Leviticus chapter 19, verse 28. You shall not make any cuts in your body for the dead, nor make any tattoo marks on yourselves. I am the Lord. This is the passage that Hemogoblin is more than likely referring to. And in this old law, he says quite clearly, don't do this. Don't cut yourself for the dead in a way of mourning, or don't get a tattoo. Now, this is... it is important, Hemogoblin, to consider why God said this. So what I want to do real quick is actually look at some extra biblical material. It is Nelson's Illustrated Bible Dictionary to get a little information here. Now here is what is recorded concerning tattoos. This is page 1226 in this particular book. Tattoo, a permanent mark or design fixed upon the body by a process of pricking the skin and inserting an indelible color under the skin. The moral and ceremonial laws of Leviticus declare, you shall not make any cuttings in your flesh for the dead, nor tattoo any marks upon you, Leviticus 19:28. Any kind of self-laceration or marking of the body was prohibited among the Hebrew people. Such cuttings were associated with pagan cults that tattooed their followers while they mourned the dead. Okay, so according to this particular book, Nelson's, the tattooing was done as a way of mourning, as a way of maybe commemoration. It's something that, at least in the West, we don't necessarily understand as much as, well, our Eastern brethren may or may not do today. I know while we were overseas, there were other items that were done, other practices that were done to be part of a certain group, or to remember a person, things of that nature, to keep demons away, kind of thing. So in this case, though, back in the Old Testament times, this was often a pagan worship. They were honoring the dead, yes, as Nelson's recorded for us, but also they were worshiping a deity, or at least a pagan deity, things of that nature. And Yahweh in Leviticus is saying, whoa, 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 whoa. You guys are special. You belong to me. You do not do this stuff. You are going to be different than the nations around you. Which brings me to the question of the day. Should we avoid these tattoos? At least in most situations in the Western culture, these tattoos do not mean what they mean in certain cultures in history, or also in the eastern part of the world in some situations, even today. people just look at the tattoo and say, wow, that's really, really a neat thing. And I want that. Or I want to get my kids' names tattooed, my anniversary, so I don't forget when it is. Don't get in trouble with my wife kind of thing, you know. But is it a sin? Hemogoblin, my opinion on this is that by the time of the New Testament, the culture had changed enough and God was bringing the Gentiles in. So these tattoos and other things were being allowed at that point. They did not mean the same thing as they once did. Now, does that mean that we can do them today? I believe the answer is that they are okay. They are allowed today, but I am not sure. I will tell you at this time of recording this video, I have absolutely no tattoos. I have considered getting one on my ring finger for my wedding ring or something like that, because I take my ring off when I'm in the gym because it cuts into the weights and I often forget to put it back on. But beyond that, I don't know that it is a sin today. So what I am going to say is consider your conscience in this issue. Let's take a look at what Paul says about conscience. It's Romans chapter 14. Now, in this particular context, in Romans 14, Paul uses an example of eating meat, and some people saying, I can't do that. I just can't do that because I don't know if the meat's been sacrificed to an idol. We're going to pick up Romans chapter 14. We're going to start in verse 20 and finish the chapter to get an idea of what Paul is saying about our conscience and our freedom in Christ and how we should be careful with said freedom. Do not tear down the work of God for the sake of food. All things indeed are clean, but they are evil for the man who eats and gives offense. It is good not to eat meat or to drink wine or to do anything by which your brother stumbles. The faith which you have as your own conviction before God. Happy is he who does not condemn himself in what he approves. But he who doubts is condemned if he eats, because his eating is not from faith. And whatever is not from faith is sin. So Paul, again, uses the example of eating meat that more likely has been sacrificed to a pagan god. And he's saying, if it bothers your conscience, don't eat it. If you think it bothers some of your brethren for you to eat it, don't eat it, because their soul is far more important than our freedoms. So as far as the tattoos go, if you know somebody is going to have an issue with that, and a legitimate issue, not just I hate tattoos, I can't believe you do that kind of an issue, but a legitimate faith issue, avoid it. Their soul, their faith is far more important than our freedoms in Christ, even if we are allowed to do certain things. I hope that helps. I know that's not a hard and fast yes or no on is tattoo a sin, but this is one of those situations where there is no clear-cut answer for us within the pages of the New Testament and under the New Covenant. So I have a question for you. What do you do when something is not explicitly said, this is what you do, or this is what you do not do? How can you tell if those things are pleasing in God's sight? Leave me a comment in the section below. Don't forget to like and subscribe so that you don't miss anything that's coming up on Questions Over Coffee. Thank you for our time together today. I look forward to the next time. Keep pressing forward.